So, Ben Kirby, people know you as the Preachers and Sneakers guy, but who, in your own words, who are you?
Yeah. I pay a lot in therapy to try to answer that question. It's a complicated question, I guess. But I am unfortunately, to some, the Preachers and Sneakers guy. I thought I would have more to say for my life, but right now I'm the Preachers and Sneakers guy, that Instagram guy that makes a bunch of people uncomfortable. I'm a Christian guy that grew up in Louisiana in the States, and I'm not a musician much anymore, but I came up playing drums in a Dave Matthews cover band.
Nice.
And so I shout out to the musicians that are on this podcast. I respect the job. I also respect the hustle and the freaking bar food you have to eat and the weird hours and all that kind of stuff. So, music was actually a big part of my life until college. I grew up in a small town and there weren't a ton of drummers in the town. And so I was able to get a good amount of gigs growing up, which was very fun. And I thought I was going to do music my whole life, but life changes when you get older. You know, not everybody that plays music for a living is on living in a mansion. And most people aren't. Most people are making $50 a show or whatever. Anyways, I was in the military out of college as a Marine officer. I did that for a while, and then I worked in leading a business in Texas, a property management company, and then went back to business school because I wanted to eventually run my own company. And during that time, I'd gotten into sneakers. I was kind of making money on the side, buying and reselling sneakers because there's this market, there's this resale market out there that you can actually, if you get the right sneakers, you can actually make some money. And so I had gotten savvy on the sneaker world, and halfway through my master's in business, this Preachers and Sneakers thing blew up out of my control by way of my phone. And 2.5 years later, I'm still the Preachers and Sneakers guy. So I guess the short answer is, I guess I'm an author and a podcaster and an entrepreneur and an idiot sometimes, and a guy that's trying his best, but I'm not a theologian or an academic or even that much of a, what's the word? I'm not on mission to like reshape all of Christian culture, but I've kind of been planted in the middle of this kind of interesting conversation. An activist is the word I was looking for. Yeah. I'm not really an activist, but I do care about my faith and care about how our faith is portrayed to the outside world. And a lot of these things that came up from Preachers and Sneakers are very relevant to that. So still seems worth discussing.
Thank you for doing the hard yards, even if it just somehow landed you here. I appreciate it. You also have a kid, right?
Yeah. The kid is as old as the book. He was born April 20th and the book came out April 27th.
Wow.
This year.
It was meant to be.
I guess. I don't know. It's ridiculous. Just a ridiculous prospect to do both of those things at the same time. It's our first kid. Yeah.
Oh, congrats. You're amazing.
Thank you.
You're a superhuman.
Thank you.
And in a global pandemic.
Fun. Yeah. No pressure.
When did your obsession with sneakers begin?
It was 2015. I have a friend that plays professional basketball, and he had just gotten picked up by the Golden State Warriors. And in 2015, this was the first year that they won the NBA championship, and he had gifted me a bunch of sneakers while I was actually on deployment with the Marines. So you didn't ask this, but my wife and I got married in the middle of 2014, and I deployed January of 2015 to Romania. And so I was living in Romania after getting married 6 months prior without her. She's not there. And so I think for my birthday while I was out there, my friend Justin gifted me a bunch of sneaks to try to cheer me up probably. And to, he's just like super generous guy and we're really good friends. And so I didn't care about sneakers before then, but once I got those sneakers, when I got home from my deployment, I kind of have an obsessive personality. And so once I saw these sneakers, I was like, oh, these are actually pretty cool. I never considered any of these. I started learning more and more about them and following sneaker Twitter and all that kind of stuff, and realized there's also an entrepreneurial angle to it where you can kind of buy and sell them a little bit just from your phone. And so I started doing that. So probably August or September of 2015 was when I really gave sneakers any kind of attention. And then 2017, I got pretty serious about buying and reselling sneakers. And then 2019 was when the account blew up.
Okay, nice.
It went viral.
Yeah. So when did you realize that Preachers and Sneakers had actually made it, if there's such a thing as making it?
Yeah. There's some weird metrics. I don't know how you define success with this kind of thing. I think making it, there was a few moments where I realized, oh, this is a lot bigger than what I thought it was going to be. Probably when I went past 10,000 followers in like a week.
Amazing.
I without doing anything except just reposting a pastor's photo and putting the price tag of their sneakers right next to it. Literally, that's all I was doing. So like the first week, maybe I had 10,000 followers, and it started to exponentially grow week after week after that. Then when my phone battery was just dying from notifications from all these people following and resharing and saying, this is the best account on the internet, blah, blah, blah. And these celebrities start following and reaching out to me. That's where I was like, oh, this is way bigger than me just making some comments about some sneakers. And then, at the same time, people started to get real angry at me because they thought I was attacking pastors or being divisive or trying to, erode Christianity's foothold in the world, that kind of thing, questioning my salvation, all that kind of stuff. So once I started getting the people that were like questioning my salvation, getting really angry, I was like, oh, this hurts, but also this is an indication that there's something that needs to maybe be unearthed further here. So when some of the pastors started to reach out or comment, that's when I realized, oh, this is going to be pretty big. Yeah.
For people who are meant to love our neighbors, and I count myself in this ballpark, we can be really, really mean and catty, especially on social media. Yeah.
It's very easy to do on social media.
Right? Yeah, very easy.
And I'm not like holier than thou. Like the people are, I am very aware that people are mean in my comments section. It's just a matter of, I can't control every adult human out there that has a social media account and their opinions about people. So, at a certain point I have to set some boundaries, but yes, the meanest people are Christians, at least to me.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's plenty of people that are fans of my account that are atheists or agnostic or whatever. And they have church hurt, or they have, like real deep seated issues with Christianity, all that kind of thing. That's one element that maybe could draw out meanness or anything. But then there's also people that are very ingrained in church that can have this very mean spirited streak to them, whether for or against my account. And it's just, I've been able to see all sides of it.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate that you're able to see the nuance in people's responses and what motivates them. I know that you couldn't dwell too much in that because it would just be such a waste and a drain on your time and your energy. But that's something that even when I've been looking through your account and seeing responses, and actually I had a question about it down here, literally just about, wow, what's going on behind the scenes for that person? Knowing that in another time, that could have been me saying that. And it's really interesting how you created this cool, fun thing that's interesting, and it sort of developed into something bigger than you because it's calling out something bigger than us. I listened to your interview with Knox McCoy, which I really appreciated. It was so well done. And
he's awesome.
Yeah, right? I loved how you talked about, and rephrase me if I got this wrong, you talked about essentially coming up with your own theology and thoughts and values around Christian celebrity culture and influence and wealth as this account was snowballing, as it was getting bigger and you were having people call you and say things to you. What was that process like? Because that seems, on a personal level, so intensely difficult. And here you are in the public spotlight unwittingly. How did that happen?
Yeah. that's been one of the most, I guess, draining elements of the whole experience, is because you're right. Like I did not start this in order to discuss celebrity pastors and making money off of church or anything. I was literally just this average random dude that said, "Hey, those sneakers are $800, dude. That feels weird to me." That was it. That was the extent of it. And then I, by way of talking to thousands and thousands and thousands of people, realized that, oh, there's much deeper, important topics that are just kind of, the door is open by way of the sneakers thing. And I had never had to do something like that before, basically develop a theology around a thing I had already started that people were already assigning motive and their own theology to. And like being asked by mainstream media publications about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and not wanting to say, I don't know, dude, like people are sharing this and really think it's funny or really think what I'm doing is super important. And I don't know, like, I don't know if what I'm doing, like the first year, you said, you know, can't really spend much time on the nuance of every situation. I tried, because people inevitably, I would post about somebody and then I would get this still happens. I'll get a message from their close friend or family member saying, well, you know, bloody blah, so-and-so gave him those because bloody blah, or he, you know, has never bought a nice thing in his life, or he makes $40,000 a year or whatever. I'm the type of person that is empathetic to situations, and I don't love the idea of people treating others unfairly, but it seemed like a big macro thing was happening, though, where there's a whole slew of guys that seem to be getting rich off of just being a good preacher or a pastor, and in turn was leveraging that to even greater wealth and notoriety and all that kind of stuff. And I just started, once I kind of got my feet under me on understanding what I was doing, I started asking, like, hey, is there ever too much? I mean, it seems like most of us can agree that private jets is something that probably most pastors or preachers don't need. But where does that line stop? And are we allowed to ever care about public figures that are also faith leaders? You know, do we owe them the Matthew 18 treatment or whatever to go to them in private when they're saying, hey, look at my whole life that I'm choosing to put on display? You know, I had all those questions, and clearly a lot of other people did. And so I didn't start out with any of those questions, nor did I really care. But clearly, people will argue this, but I believe that God was doing something with it, and is still doing something with it. And this has been me trying to be diligent with that opportunity. Like, I don't know why he allowed this to happen or made it to happen, but he did. And a lot of my theology around this is me just saying, all right, God, this is super uncomfortable. I want everybody to get along. But clearly you're trying to get us to talk about something, I think. And so I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for doing, even though it's exhausting, thank you for doing the hard work in yourself. It could be, I feel like in the hands of, and this is not about a specific person, but in the hands of anyone, it would be very easy just to post up things and get lost in the accolades of it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate how hard you clearly work to always reassess yourself and what you're doing, because that's freaking exhausting.
Yes,
but
it
it's
is.
essential.
Thank you. That's very kind. And I hope other people see that, because it's very easy to come to my account quickly and say, oh, this guy's just trying to build up his own platform off of trying to, you know, insult other people or call other people out. And I try to be quick to say, like, dude, I don't deserve this, and I don't know why this happened, but I'm trying to be responsible and diligent with it. And people from the beginning hopefully have seen that, like the Today Show, one of the biggest morning shows in the world, invited me to come on, and I ended up saying no to it. / I also did this anonymously for 2 years. Like, I could have immensely built up my platform a lot quicker. But I know how much to my head that would go. Like, I love the feeling of people thinking I'm funny, or people sharing my stuff, or thinking what I'm doing is important. That feels really good. And I try to be self-aware about that, so that I can fight against this idea that people are going to build me up as a celebrity myself or whatever. It's like, it's an imperfect battle, but I at least want to show that I'm trying to not be just all bought into how great I am and, constantly trying to build my own platform.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I have nowhere near like the influencers, followers, whatever that you have with your platform. But I know as a journalist and as a human,
Mm-hmm.
I constantly have to wrestle with that too, and just be like, why am I actually doing this? Like, what does it actually mean for me when I receive a comment this way? And that's one of the reasons I just so appreciate it, because it's even on a small level, like whatever we do, it feels like it's a wrestle. But that's what I guess I would say about your work, and even outside of Preachers and Sneakers, probably is what makes what you do in your life so rich and rewarding for God's kingdom. And now I'm sounding super preachy, and I'm so sorry, but
I like it.
I value that, because that's, like I said, it's not easy. It's so hard. I'm curious, what was your experience like growing up in the church? Did you have, as much as you're comfortable, did you have church hurt? Was it all positive? Like, what was your experience of church going into this last 3 years of your life?
Yeah, from what I can remember, it was all positive. Like, sure, I was not a perfect kid. My parents did a really good job of protecting us from the world when we needed protecting, and then letting us loose when they felt like we had a good basis for what we believed. Like, I was homeschooled until 8th grade. And so I had a kind of sheltered upbringing. Church was a huge part of my life through that. That was basically my only social outlet at the time. And then going into high school and college and everything, I've been involved. I mean, I've been a Christian since I was 8, which is a super good age for big decisions.
Oh, absolutely.
Big life decisions.
Right there with you. Yes.
Yeah. But I am very grateful that I just don't have any extreme church hurt. The guys that mentored me coming up, I even, write about a couple in my book. They poured into me, were kind to me, did not, were just nothing but great, displayed Christ in a way that was humble and not self-serving, but was also bold and not sugarcoating the uncomfortable parts of Christianity, that kind of thing. Pushed me to study the Bible, pushed me to share my faith, all that kind of stuff. And so that was very helpful going into college. Once I got into college, I got involved with the campus ministry and was that guy in the fraternity house that was doing Bible studies and stuff.
We would have been friends.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And then when I got out, or when I graduated college and went to the Marines, that's where, it's a very isolated, kind of lonely world to be in. It's not exactly, being a warfighter isn't exactly a conducive, Christian environment oftentimes. And so I wasn't reading as much. The churches were kind of terrible in all the places I was stationed, because people were just moving all the time. And so nobody was invested. So all that to say, I am still a Christian. I think I wrestle more now than I ever have before about things that I just accepted at face value, about many of the things that people that deconstruct end up rethinking. I struggle with a lot of those things right now, or at least wrestle with a lot of those things, which I think is a good practice, but also it's a different thing than I've ever felt about being a Christian. Because for a long time, we don't have to get into this, but I'm reading this book on hell and how there's these 4 super smart dudes arguing about different interpretations of what hell is in the Bible. Either the annihilationists, the eternal conscious torment, the purgatory guys, and then the universalist guys. Think growing up, I was like, hell is this fiery place that sinners go that didn't repent. But there's all these smart people out there that saying, well, actually, based on how I read scripture, anyways. So doing the Preachers and Sneakers thing has caused me to really wrestle with all the other things that I have held as gospel. But my upbringing has been very, very helpful, even just for a content perspective, to be able to merge kind of sneaker and pop culture with kind of nuanced niche Christian culture that people that came up in the 90s would only get And so I think people appreciate how I can do both of those things in a way that can appeal to multiple audiences. And so I see it as I'm grateful for how I came up in the church.
Yeah. I love that. I relate so much to your journey. We would have been sort of friends at school and church, but because I grew up like going to a primary school in Australia, but I was still scared of boys. So I would have been like, look, it's my fellow Christian, but I wouldn't have talked to you till I was 16, but I would have appreciated your work. So like,
Love that.
I see that person.
Absolutely. We'd be friends eventually though, going into college.
Get there. We would have started the Christian club together when I was in high school, which my sister definitely started and I definitely helped with. So we're good there. Yeah. What
awesome.
I'm super curious about is you started deconstructing is a word that some people seem to attack now, and I don't get why, because it's just life. But you've started reshaping your beliefs, what you think about certain theology stuff. While you've been running Preachers and Sneakers, and people have been throwing all sorts of things at you, all sorts of comments and questions, and I know from listening to your previous work that in some cases, like, you engage in conversation. And I'm not asking you to disclose any of those conversations. That would be stupid. But you engage with people when they approach you. What sort of impact does it have on your relationship with God, if any, when people start using the Bible or references about the God you love against you?
Mm-hmm. You're asking some good questions. Most people don't ask this. Like these are very like detailed questions, because like this shows that you actually have looked into this. So it's going to make me think about a non-canned answer. I know, like, this is actually very good. Like, this is actually gets my brain going. Because this is like goes back to the very beginning and is things that I talk about in therapy all the time, because it's kind of that whole tension is kind of anxiety inducing, in that, like, hey, people are messaging me that say we both believe the same thing, but they are adamant about what I'm doing is an attack or is wrong. And for me, as a guy that has read his Bible his whole life, still thinks that what he's doing is not an attack or is wrong. And for the first year, I was engaging with basically anybody that would message me or comment, regardless of tone or whatever. So I had these just hours and hours of conversations with people that disagreed and were calling me a hypocrite and a coward, and that I didn't have an understanding of very key parts of the Bible because of what I was doing on social. And so that, as a guy that cares about what people think about him and has emotions and isn't a sociopath, like, that is a lot to deal with at scale when there's thousands of people doing that. Now 2.5 years later, I have a few more boundaries. Like, I'll block a few more people if I can tell they're just being jerks. Like, let's see. I eagerly look for opportunities to talk with people that disagree, but that disagree in a way that's respectful, and that isn't just me trying to get you or to make me look like a fool or whatever. So, at the first year, I just wanted everybody to understand why I was doing it, that I wasn't a jerk or a troll or whatever. And then I actually had some, eventually, once I figured out why I was doing what I was doing, that I had a better motive than they thought, just by showing up. But now there's so many people out there. I just can't, I can't have that battle with everybody. The book, to me, while it's a little self-serving, is something finally that I can point to and say, look, if you really think I'm a jerk and can't understand why I would ever do something like this, read my book or listen to my book. I'll give it to you for free if you can't afford it, whatever. So that's been helpful, because for a long time I just didn't have anything other than what I could write in DMs. But it did, I think the crux of your question, it did make me, it made me sad and angry and still kind of does when people that are clearly Christians or say they're Christians show up and don't even try to understand or try to put some thought into the utility of this, instead of just showing up and trying to ask bad faith questions to try to make me look like further a jerk, where anything I answer, you're just going to put back on me and say something else mean. And so like now I'm at the point where I'm not going to engage in that because I know it's just going to ruin my whole day. But it's made me really question basically everything I believe, because it's like, well, if this person says they believe in the same gospel that I've believed in my whole life, what is my actual understanding of this? Because either I'm super off base in what I'm doing and don't understand anything of what I say I believe, or this person doesn't, and I want to be able to live in the middle. So that's not my favorite part about the account, because it makes me feel like I'm doing something wrong, or makes me feel like I'm hurting Christians or whatever, which I'm not trying to do, but I am trying to not shy away from difficult questions that seem to be much bigger issues than whether or not I should be posting pictures on Instagram.
Yeah. Thank you for being so honest. I really appreciate that. For what it's worth, just another random person who follows you, I really appreciate how you approach everything with love. I know that you're imperfect and that we learn as we go when we do social media and podcasts and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that you have that posture, because it is so hard. One of the reasons I started my podcast was because I lived in Nashville for a while and I saw Chris Tomlin leading an Easter service on stage. I don't have a problem with Chris Tomlin, but I saw all these people in Bridgestone Arena eating popcorn while he was singing about the death and resurrection of Jesus. And I was so frustrated. And I was judging.
What is this?
I was judging people so hard. And God was like, but what if you're one of them, Jessica? And I was like, wait, no, I'm not one of them. And he was like, yeah, but I was like, oh, okay, I need to have conversations with people. And so it's that constant awkwardness of pressing into the places that hurt the most. And trying to find the humanity in there without degrading your own faith or your own value of yourself. It's really tough work, hey?
Right. Yeah. While there's also not there, like, I'm not a moral relativist, but there is some relativism to some of these things. Like, is it wrong for somebody to be eating popcorn while watching the most famous Christian artist of all time? I don't know. But like for some people, it makes you feel a certain type of way, because there's like some like, hey, this feels irreverent, or it feels like this is treating God's work as a show or something. And if your posture is, there's not a good answer, so I'm just going to bury my head in the sand, it's like, dude, that's intellectually lazy, I think. And there's many people online that are wanting to be intellectually lazy and just say black or white, whether everything is right or wrong. And those are the type of people that turn off half of their audience or whatever, or, you very quickly can become a jerk if you say this is always right or this is always wrong about everything.
So easy to become a jerk.
Yeah. And I was a Marine. Like I've come from a very cut and dry militant background where I have lived, like I've ordered people around to do very hard things, and told them, you're going to do this, you're going to shut up, and you're not going to ask questions why, and this is going to happen. And so there's many days where I'm like, when somebody, says that one thing that I'm already struggling with, or like that I'm already insecure about, and they already say that thing, and I just want to like reach through Instagram and own this person. But so far I've been able to find ways to take a second before just snapping back or trying to be mean. But you're right. It's hard to be nuanced and approach things in love, because oftentimes people are not giving that to you.
Yeah, it's tough.
And it's very hard to just be like, all right, I'm just going to keep taking this over and over and over and over and over, So yeah. I don't know. I can't remember where I was going with that.
No. How do you try to take care of yourself through that? I heard that you said you go to therapy, which made me excited, because I'm just like, yes, therapy always. But how do you take care of yourself? Do you have to limit the amount of time that you spend on social media now, given that everyone's always sending things to you?
Yeah, a lot of things. I mean, counseling is so important important to me. There's not many times in life where you can just unabashedly say your entire piece and the person is basically has to listen to you. And that just that act is helpful for me as a guy that's got anxiety and depression, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, we
But,
got a
I mean,
comment.
yeah. I don't think we're unique either.
No.
The first year I was doing like 9 or 10 hours a day on social, like legit 9 or 10 hours a day. And that is not sustainable if you want to stay married or even stay sane. And so now I limited a ton, and I'm trying to get to the point where I'm not really on it. Like I'm trying to get to the point where I have like a media manager that does the day-to-day of it, just because oftentimes when I post now, there is some element of anxiety that comes up because I still know that somebody in the comments section is going to be mean to the person I post about or whatever. And that, like, I still think what I do is important, but I can't bear that every day for every person. Because we're talking about bigger topics here. We're not talking about like singular people most often. So, therapy is really helpful. Setting boundaries on social. I mean, my next book might be about Christians and social media altogether, because the more time I spend on it, the less I'm like, you know what? God is super thrilled about this. Like super thrilled about the type of people we are on this thing. Granted, there's like tons of reach and tons of utility to it, but the type of people we're turning into, the type of people I've turned into oftentimes is like, this app, this freaking thing shouldn't be able to cause me 1 ounce of anxiety. This stupid like computer in my hand should not be allowed to do that to me, yet it does, even if I'm not even like talking to anybody, or like there's just unlimited things that can make me feel terrible about my life. So limiting that has been super helpful. Setting boundaries. I think delegating some of the stuff, like I've basically done this account, the book, the podcast, all myself, except for having, I had a media manager in 2019, and then I have an assistant now that I think you've talked to, that helps me stay organized. Delegating some of that stuff is helpful. And then having a community of people that can speak into the lies that I believe about myself, is super helpful too. So like therapy is one thing, but I think everybody needs a few people around them that know you really well, that can say, hey, that's not true. Or, hey, actually that is true. You are being a jerk online, or all that kind of stuff. So I'd probably say those 3 things.
Yeah, they're good. Nice. I have some funny popcorn questions for you, but I have one more question that I'm curious about.
Okay.
You've talked with people of great influence. They've reached out to you. And again, I'm not asking for conversations, but you've talked to them. And so in some capacity, you've got an insight into the world beyond the screen, beyond the sermon, beyond the expensive Gucci belt or the shoes. You've met people in some way. When people of influence, Christian people of influence, have some public fallout in any capacity, there's a tendency for Christians to point the finger and get really mad. Sometimes, understandably, we need to ask hard questions when that happens. But has your access and conversations with lots of those people helped you to better empathize with them when the fallout does happen? Or is it more just a knowing, like that's just a consequence of fame?
I think the thing I didn't realize before all this, was that reaction to people falling in their ministry is indicative of who makes idols out of who, and who, like the people that are mad and leaving a ministry, or going online and ranting about this kind of thing. Oftentimes, those are the people that idolized that person, and in turn are now feeling the effects of that fake God disappointing them as expected. And I didn't really see anything wrong with that before. Like I was fans of certain pastors and authors, all that kind of thing. But now I really have to like audit the idea that I think any one man or woman is worthy of worship in a way. Like I think there's a way to honor people and appreciate talent and all that kind of stuff. But you have to really check yourself if you have this like visceral anger about a situation that is far removed from you. So like a pastor or worship leader, or whatever, that has an affair or does something with money or whatever and gets caught, and now you're pissed about it. It's like, why are you pissed about it? Are you mad because Christians now have another thing tarnishing their name? Or are you mad because you actually put some actual weight and trust into this person for their teaching, their writing, their singing, or whatever, and now they're eroding their place in your like on your shelf of idols that you have? I think many people have never even given thought about how they put certain leaders on a pedestal. And I think you should really check that for yourself, because this is going to keep happening. Like it's on us for like, we're the ones demanding people with huge platforms, and we're causing people to have huge platforms, yet we're shocked that they end up being humans just like us. So like, I think it's not just on the guy that's famous for being famous and in turn having a huge fall. It's on us also for like treating guys and girls as larger than life figures, because that just makes it worse on them. But having seen behind the curtain about some of them, like, yeah, I mean, I kind of empathize with people to a fault anyways, but now having interacted with a lot of these guys and seen like they have normal lives, they got families to feed, all that kind of stuff. I absolutely empathize, especially for the whole, like, when the mob comes for you, when you do something wrong. Like, I get it. Like, I kind of caused a mob to start paying attention to these guys in a way that they weren't expecting. But that's a pretty brutal thing to happen when you screw up, or you say something that you regret, or you have something from 20 years ago get brought up and now everybody's canceling you. I at least empathize with that, and I would hate for that to happen to me. So I think that's the one of the root issues of having celebrities in Christian culture, is that we create additional gods that are going to disappoint us and in turn make us mad when they disappoint us. And I think we need to continue digging into that.
Nice. Thank you. That was so well answered. Quick popcorn questions for you that shouldn't take too long.
All right.
If Jesus was around, you know what I mean, when sneakers were available, what sort of sneakers would Jesus wear? Knowing that Jesus has access to a wardrobe of sneakers, so no one has to judge you for getting Jesus wrong.
That's right. I think I originally said, somebody asked me that right when I started the account, and I said like Air Max 1s. But I think now, it would have to be Chaco sandals. Do you know what those are?
Yes! I love that.
I think, that's like a modern adaptation of what he probably was wearing back in the day.
Oh,
and so I think that would be, that's probably what it would be. Chacos.
It's the only one that will get you through the desert sand. Yeah, good choice.
That's right.
That's amazing. I wasn't expecting that. It was great. What is the weirdest comment you have ever received on Instagram?
The weirdest comment?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody compared me to Martin Luther one time, which I didn't want. Like, I do not think I'm anywhere near anything that Martin Luther ever did. But the first time somebody brought that up, I was like, wow, that's pretty dramatic. People say weird stuff all the time, and a lot of it's not funny. People trying to be funny. I'm trying to think. I'll have to get back to you on it. It's like thousands and thousands of comments. Not one has stuck out.
I mean, Martin Luther, that's pretty high praise. Like, you're not a bad guy, but that's pretty up there.
Right. Right.
Last question for you. If you could go back 2.5 years or so before you hit publish on that first post, not knowing what was going to happen, what would you say to yourself, knowing what you know now?
Some days it's don't do it. Certain days, I saw my life could have played out some different, maybe more chill ways than this way. I think if I was going to still go through with it, I think I would tell that version of myself to message some of the pastors first, to at least say that I did, or at least give it a second and ask a few more questions about the situations surrounding $1,200 shoes on faith leaders. Like I think one of the reasons people really liked what I was doing was because I was unabashedly posting without asking. The first 6 months, I was just posting without asking any questions, without caring for anybody's feelings or anything. And people were like, yeah, this is what I've always wanted to do, but I wasn't going to do it. And I'm not that person to begin with, really. I was on some kind of kick back then, and knowing what I know now, I would just ask a few more questions on the front end. And it probably wouldn't have blown up the way it did if I did, but looking back, I would have preferred to do that.
I hear that. Thank you so much for your time.